Hi, everyone. It's Natalie Ellis from Esteem Counseling and Consulting Services, and welcome to Ask the Therapist. And it is Wednesday, August 28th, 2019. Wow, 2019 is going so fast, and we're almost here in 2020. So, just take a moment and just really enjoy this moment because the year's going by so quickly. So today on Ask the Therapist, I just wanted to talk briefly about some myths in regards to therapy, and just primarily four things that I hear often. First of all, it's important for people to understand that mental health is something that impacts all of us. Okay, all of us are impacted by mental health in terms of our mind, our mindset, how we see things, how we do things, how we're motivated, our perceptions. All of those things are impacted by our mind, by our history, our childhood, our experiences, and all that affects who we are, and creates our mindset about things. Okay, and depending on our experiences, some of us have may experience more difficult things, and which then creates more struggles in terms of how we cope and deal with the things that's happening to us. And so mental health is something that we all deal with. We all have to be mindful and aware of our mental health and how we are coping with it and how we're dealing with it and how it's impacting our lives. Okay? Research says that mental health affects 1 in 5 Americans. 1 in 5 American adults specifically. Okay? And suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. So when you have mental health affecting 1 in 5 adults, and it's the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, this is something significant. And so now when it comes to therapy, therapy is something that can be useful for all of us, for all individuals. And there's various ways that we can use therapy, and there's various kinds of therapy. Okay, so I am a licensed professional counselor, and I have a master's. And so, in order to provide therapy or to provide direct services in the mental health field in terms of clinical work, you have to have a master's. In order to be an LPC, an LCSW, in order to do therapy, you have to have a master's, and you must be licensed in whatever state. Most states require that people be licensed in order to provide therapy. So that's number one. And so the therapist that's working with the individuals are trained, have the tools to kind of help individuals cope and deal with the things that they have going on. And various therapists are skilled in different things. Okay, so my specialty has been working with individuals who's had some childhood trauma, who's then are affected by depression, anxiety, traumatic symptoms, and things of that sort. Okay? So, because mental health affects 1 in 5 adult Americans, then again, therapy is something that can be useful for them. So, a myth, when people say, well, therapy is for the weak, that's a big myth. Okay? And so, an individual, when they come to therapy, it doesn't mean that they are weak. A therapy is a tool. A therapist can be a support for an individual and can provide tools for individuals. So therapy can be a tool. So just like if I'm not good at math, then I seek a tutor, somebody to assist me in helping me with this math. With therapy works in the same way. If you are struggling emotionally with something or struggling with an experience or with a trauma, then a therapist can be a tool to help you work through some of those things. So going to therapy has nothing to do with weakness or strength. Okay, so we need to dispel that myth. Another myth is I often hear, well, I thought that if I come to therapists, they're going to put me on medication. Well, there's, again, when people begin therapy, there's lots of avenues that it can go from there, okay? And so I am not a psychiatrist, so people who prescribe medications are psychiatrists, okay? They're MDs, so not PhDs. PhDs do not prescribe, so the psychologists do not prescribe medication. The psychiatrists do. They prescribe medications, the MDs. So not everyone, because you come to therapy, automatically means you're going to be prescribed medication, right? So there's talk therapy, there's play therapy, there's art therapy. There's a lot of different forms of therapy that can be used to process and work through whatever the situation is that the client is dealing with. Okay, and medication can be an option. So depending on what the client is presenting with. So if it's significant depression and it's been a depression that's been going on for a very long time, and all other things have been tried, then potentially medication can be an option also. And at that point, when medication is being considered, then they are referred to a psychiatrist. So with a lot of my clients, we try a lot of different things in therapy first. And if we're still not seeing progress in the way that we want, then we start exploring, well, maybe we need to look into psychotropic medication, look into medication. Sometimes we may start with the vitamins, shifting again, being aware of things that you're eating, making sure you're sleeping well. So we got to consider all these things when it comes to our mental health. And once all these things have been considered and we're still struggling emotionally or still struggling mentally, then I refer clients to see a psychiatrist. So no, therapy doesn't automatically equal to being placed on medication or being put on medication. Okay? Another myth is children don't have mental health, so therefore children don't need therapy. Well, there's lots of kids are dealing with a lot of trauma. A lot of kids experience things very early on in their life, and in those experiences, they're dealing with all of those emotions, dealing with a lot of behaviors, and a therapy, again, is a tool for them to work through some of those things. And so, yes, therapy can be used for children, and I've seen kids as young as 3. Because the other thing, too, to understand that our brain, so our mental health in our brain develops very early on at embryo, right? And so the mother, if the mother is experiencing her own trauma, is experiencing her own emotional dysregulation, is experiencing her own stuff, guess what? It's feeding to the baby. So the baby's also feeding some of those dysregulation, emotional instability. So the baby's feeding that too. So we could have a situation where babies are born dysregulated. Babies are born anxious. Babies are born certain ways also. And along their lifetime, or especially early on, may need therapy to help them manage some of those behaviors and some of those emotions and symptoms as well. And so, yeah, therapy can begin very early on. And there's, again, all forms of therapy for children. But therapy can be something that is a tool that can be used early on for children to help them regulate their emotion, manage their behavior, cope with symptoms. Okay, so that's another myth we want to dispel, and that therapy is for crazy people. Again, when people are saying therapy, I'm not crazy, so I don't need therapy. So I often get that from clients. I'm not crazy. Do you think I'm crazy? And again, really. Not giving any weight and putting weight to those type of statements, because again, coming to therapy, using therapy as a tool to help you manage your emotions, to help you manage the thing that's going on, has nothing to do with crazy or not. And so that's another myth to dispel. So just wanted to talk about some of those things, because that's something I've been hearing a lot with a lot of new clients that I've had, in terms of being shameful for coming to therapy, feeling embarrassed for having to come to therapy, yet they are at a point of their lives where they are overwhelmed with everything they have going on. Well, when we're noticing these things with us emotionally, then it's important to seek help, right? So again, if I'm struggling with math, I go try to find a math tutor. If I don't know how to fix this thing in my house, then I go find a carpenter, or I go find somebody who could potentially fix these things. And so with whatever problem we present with, whatever situation we're presenting with, we find people who could assist us to help us work through the things and to work through whatever it is that we have going on. And therapy is simply that. But first, we have to definitely acknowledge the things that we have going on, so that we could be at a place to then be open to receive help, receive support, receive the tools that we need to get better. So let's definitely do that and be aware of that. And so, again, I wanted to talk about that myth of therapy because I truly enjoy what I do as a therapist. Last week was a really rough week for me, and I've had lots of clients who was in crisis, and having my office and providing this work for people is amazing. So I had a particular client who was really struggling last week. What was that urge of wanting to hurt herself, not wanting to be here, and talking through some of that and providing her with tools and strategies of things that she can do to live her best life and be her best, and to shift some of those feelings of inadequacy, feelings of being overwhelmed, and that takes time. And so that's something that we did. And during her session, we were able to go through some of these things and got her to a place where she can feel hopeful and see a light at the end of her tunnel. Because again, part of our role as therapists is to help people who are in the middle of a storm and who are feeling hopeless, kind of see the light, see the end of that storm, because it's there. And sometimes we need someone to help us see those things. And for this particular individual, after her session, she was still not feeling her best and didn't want to go home. She's an elderly woman who lives by herself and didn't really feel comfortable going home. And at that point, she was still not totally herself, so I didn't want her to go home. And her being in this space, her being able to sit out there in my lobby, I was able to put her in, actually not my lobby, but I have a group room where I put her there and give her some art materials and had her just draw and write and kind of do some meditation. We did a few meditation that she was able to do on her own while I saw other clients. And so when she was able to do that and be in that space where she could kind of be here to just kind of release some whatever she had going on after her sessions and be in this space, she felt better. And then that's what therapy is all about, and the therapeutic process is all about, is when people are in situations where they are overwhelmed emotionally, overwhelmed mentally with everything they have, being able to have someone and a therapist, being able to go somewhere, a therapy practice, where they can feel safe and feel emotionally safe and get the support that they need in order to work through their emotions. And so I want to dispel a lot of the myths regarding therapy as this thing for just only certain people, only people who are sick, or only people who something's wrong with them, or people who are weak that goes there. No, this is something that everyone can utilize and find useful. So therapy is a great tool in helping people achieve goals, mental stability, and all of that. Okay, so I hope this was helpful for whomever needed to hear that, because that is something I'm constantly reinforcing, trying to break the stigma of mental health. And the way to do that, we got to break the silence. If we break the silence, break the shame and break the stigma surrounding mental health, which then allows people to be open to coming to therapy and seeing a therapist, and really getting the tools and support that they need to be their best. And that's what therapy is all about, is another tool to help people become their best, and to let go and get rid of the stuff that's heavy, and that's their past, whatever that thing is. And so therapy is a great way to achieve those goals. Okay, so thank you so much for everyone and those questions that people had. Hopefully I've answered some of those questions in regards to the myths in regards to therapy, and I strongly encourage individuals to have therapy. And that is something, as therapists, most schools, when we're going through our training, that we need to experience ourselves. And it's a great experience to be at a place where you can let go of, again, some of the burdens that you carry, because, again, carrying some of those burdens create emotional responses, behavior responses, thinking responses that sometimes aren't healthy. and we need to be at a place where we could work through those things. So hopefully this was helpful for individuals. And again, my name is Natalie Ellis. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia, and this is Ask the Therapist. So I'll see you all next time. Okay, thank you, and have a great rest of your day.